Lloyd Brown.
Steve Brown.
Why wells fail. That's your show, isn't it?
It is.
A long time ago when we started talking about this show, that's the topic that popped up. It's like it's a big challenge that the folks that you serve, they deal with. Today we're going to talk about the concept of the mindset of we got to get first day oil. We got to get this thing drilled and pumping right away to capture our investment. What's wrong with that thinking?
Well, what we've learned is that, you pumped a bunch of water and other chemicals and sand into this well. And if you think about it, you're kind of pushing things away, you would think, and you're creating these fractures. And then these wells are shut in for a period of time while each stage is completed. And so you have some of your well bore that has been soaking under temperature and pressure for 15, 20, 30 days. And as the law of equilibrium is kicking in and you've got this massive disruption from the fracking, if you start seeing early oil, it's usually in the form of an emulsion, and it usually causes other complexities to happen. And we used to blame it on it's the FR, it's all of these different things. And that can have an impact. But the biggest part of it is the chemical reaction, the disruption that happens from disrupting this rock that has been in a place of stasis for millions of years. It's funny, the other day I read an article that said, that the wells had been, in this state for thousands of years. And you're like, well, you start going 10x of that, yeah, you'd be right. But ultimately, it's, we're disrupting this place. And what happens is if you're breaking down the geology and depending on the type of fluid system you have, you can accelerate that. And one of the indicators that you accelerated it is early oil. And, but there was a season our industry wanted early oil. They wanted a real high peak initial production rate. And because that was how you created value. In today's environment, we need to create value that is sustainable over a long period of time. And that's exactly what our focus is.
All right. So I got this, been using some of these cool tools, and they're looking at our conversations and our documents. I'm going to bring it to the stage now. And
so describe a cool tool.
A cool tool, it's called artificial intelligence, a large language model that studies all of our conversations that you and I have and get them organized in these cool visual assets to help us tell our story better. Because just like you were doing there, you were drawing a picture with your words in our heads, right, as you were talking.
Right.
And so these tools shortcut that process. But let's pick it apart.
Sounds good.
So up here on the left, in this storytelling tool, it has a transformation. We're moving from left to right. And so the villain in the story is demanding early oil. And so how fast oil can fail in several ways. We'll review those on the left. And then the refined way, how it wins. And so in the early days, like in the first 3 days, you've got early oil, but you're also starting to see signs of emulsions or high sands and fines.
Yeah, this is pretty cool. And, it's funny, the step change that it shows on the graph's really not very accurate. Well, it can be that steep cliff that we talk about where it comes off from the early peak oil. These are really cool pictures. The that's a that one picture showing the clay swelling, that would be like 100 or even 1,000 times magnification of what the real rock that we're getting this oil from. It looks more like granite in your kitchen than it does this picture. But under a microscope, all these small voids, those are the places that the oil is retained, and also the natural occurring water. It's an evaporite, it's seawater that is degraded there over time. And it's cool how this is showing how the fines, do the pool filter effect, right? You've got a pool filter, you've got a striated amount of sand in it. And as those fines come in, your pressure on your pool goes up and you have to backwash it. Well, the bad news in an oil and gas well, we can't backwash it. And we're spending a lot of money right now as an industry trying to re-stem and having some success going in, and I don't want to call it backwashing the well, but that's real similar to what we're needing to do, because we created these blocks in this filter called the sand that we use to actually keep our fractures open. And I love the pressure cooker, because that's really what we do when we frack. That's a great picture of what happens when these clay swell, when these fines come off the clays, and some of those fines are clays in and of themselves and other materials. It's all because of this central pressure cooker that is really where the law of disruption and the desire in nature to come back to a balanced place, the law of equilibrium. And to do that, there's got to be this exchange. In chemistry and in physics, we're looking at how electrons are being exchanged. And in that, certain things are made, like that's one of the components that generates H2S in a well. We have pyrite, which is iron sulfide, the elemental symbols FeS. And as we break that apart, we get iron that comes away from the sulfur. But in doing that, there's a hydrogen that's bonded to it. And then there's actually two hydrogens and a sulfur. And so you make this H2S when it was originally iron sulfide, or FeS. And so you get these reactions that are going. Same thing happens like when, with a piece of calcium carbonate. A lot of people call it caliche. Caliche is very similar, and it has the ability to release. It's like putting acid on it under pressure, and it releases CO2, which is a dissolved gas. And everybody that's drank a Coca-Cola has had some CO2 in their system. And, it's funny to correlate when you pop the top on a Coke. At the very beginning, the pH is a 0.5. And as Coca-Cola, what we call spins, because CO2 is a dissolved gas, as the gas is coming off of a Coke, the pH starts going up. And when it tastes flat, it's because the pH has come up and it's in a neutral place, and it's not attacking or creating a
sensation
chemical process on our tongue. So it's pretty cool how this has gone through and done that. But that is the effect, the pressure cooker effect. And ultimately, what we are now learning is looking at, and I love, when we start talking about 40% uplift, what we've learned is by calling the race too soon and saying, hey, this is a sprint, not a marathon, at the end, you're giving this guy a reward. And it's kind of like, it really is the old story of the tortoise and the hare. But the fact of the matter is the race is a much longer one for the life of the well than 180 days. And as an industry, we're measuring the long-term success, and we're calling balls and strikes. We're putting numbers on our balance sheet when we really don't ultimately understand the long-term impact. And over 36 months, almost without exception, the wells that have used our process over the last 10 to 15 years are, and we're talking in the thousands in these data sets that we're looking at, they outperform every time.
So the refined wave starts to develop oil in 15 to 20 days instead of what would have been the early success signal of oil in 1 to 3 days.
Well, ultimately you're measuring, you get oil in 1 to 2 days, and everybody wants to know, hey, are we going to make a well? And so the financial guys are like, oh man, we've got some oil coming off. Hey, we've got some revenue. But the discipline is, you remember that old song by Carly Simon, Anticipation?
Yeah. Yeah.
We need to be patient here. We need to be able to stand the anticipation of waiting on that. And that takes discipline, takes understanding. You need to ultimately understand the why you need to have the patience to anticipate it coming on, because what we've learned is by mitigating this pressure cooker effect, by creating what we call dynamic equilibrium and keeping the geology stable, where it doesn't produce H2S, where it doesn't produce CO2, where it doesn't have all of these other components happening. Well, then guess what? We get all the oil and we mitigate the detrimental effects of those two acid gases. And so it's a process. And I love the infographics giving us the ability to look at this and help everybody else see in somewhat of a cartoon, but very accurate fashion of what we're doing.
Yeah. So the frac water's coming back cleaner. Your decline curve is more gradual. That steep fall off, that I think of sometimes the wells fail, that when you have to restart them, you never reclaim your original pressure. That's kind of the way I see that, although your well's not going to gradually fall off that hard. But
well, sometimes they do.
Yeah.
And we've seen that, because there's blocks that happen near wellbore, and when the pressure, the delta P between the well itself and the reservoir pressure, when it becomes imbalance and there's not a higher pressure outside coming into a lower pressure zone, the oil will drop off just like you show in that infographic. It's usually, over weeks that you see that happening, but ultimately that's what the graph looks like over a 12, 18 month, 24 month time frame. It just was there and then it's not.
Wow. So many wells out there that would benefit from this process. And this at 40% production uplift. That's just that's shocking even to me.
Well, what it means, ultimately, I've had multiple conversations over the last couple of days. Everybody's like, oh, oil's going to 100, and it went to 119 and it backed off to about 90 this afternoon. And, this volatility that's going on. Ultimately, we need to help the industry and the people that trust us to go through this process. We need to help them be profitable at $50 oil. $100 oil, you can make money in spite of yourself. But at $50 oil, you've got to be hyper disciplined. You've got to understand the impact. And, there's a term called MOIC, MOIC, and it's the multiple on invested capital. And that's one of the greatest ratings of how well our process actually does compared to the industry standard. Our average MOIC is running over 2.9 times of a multiple on invested capital, where the industry standard is actually a little less than 1. And there's multiple ways to look at this, but that's one of the other things that as we're going through this, we're learning on how this uplift provides a greater rate of return over time on the invested capital. So you get a higher level of resource coming off of every dollar of capital that you've invested over the life of the well. And that MOIC doesn't even take into fact that you've reduced the lease operating expense, because you're not paying to have as much CO2 taken away. You're not paying to have as much H2S taken away from the well. And those are called docking fees or are terminal charges within the transportation network that penalize companies based on the parts per million and or percentages of that material that's in their stream. And so by suppressing that between greater than 90%, we help on the operational cost. And because that those two acid gases are not present, we lower the cost of degradation on equipment. You and I were looking at a company earlier, and one of the things they were talking about in their investor statements is that they're seeing high levels of equipment failure due to H2S and CO2, right? Mm-hmm. Well, one thing that is another benefit of our process is we dramatically reduce that impact because it's just not there. We're leaving it on the rock.
Wow. And then soon that MOIC will include the carbon abatement.
That will be another revenue stream. And I'm going to reach out to one of my professors I had at Texas Tech and visit with him in oil and gas law, because we're going to create a quandary of how people that own the geology get paid for the royalties for what it produces, but is there a responsibility to pay them for what it doesn't?
Quandary,
a good one. Where's the money go? And oh, by the way, it's a new source of revenue that we never were able to take advantage of, but are today.
We're living in a time, it's called the abundance mindset, Lloyd. Everybody's been trained to have the scarcity, and they measure everything going forward based on what we know up to this point. And here you're demonstrating an abundance opportunity here. There's some new factor that is available that we didn't expect before.
Well, just think about this. You know, it's funny. We all thought that Sirius XM radio on our cars was something amazing. And now, because we have satellite reception pretty much anywhere, thanks to Starlink, you know, we have this communication that almost is like the communicators that they had in Star Trek, right? These phones, the ability to do this unbelievable computing in our hand. It's the rate of change, but that's what happens when we have a new learning, right? When there's something new. And the infographic that you showed is another one of those step changes. If we would have had to do that by hand, how long would that have taken? My question for you is, how long did it take for the large language model to create that infographic?
It just took a couple of minutes while we were chit-chatting before the show.
That's, I mean, isn't that, I mean, you're just like, that's a force multiplier.
Totally. Of clarity, of being able to clearly communicate this idea that's been in your head for years. And now we're able to like demonstrate the various aspects and help other people see it.
Well, and it's gone from an idea to a tangible asset that's been validated through a patented process, right? And so having that and being blessed with the fact that we're the only company in the world that has the ability to provide this document it, and then create a secondary market value in the carbon market. Kind of cool.
It's kind of refined, isn't it?
It's getting there.
Getting there. What a time to be refined. Why wells fail. Lloyd, anything, you've been blinding us with science. Anything else you want to drop before we wrap this up?
The one thing is for the folks that aren't in the industry, and even those that are, the volatility that we're seeing is not our future. And I would suggest that when there's greater stability, there's going to be a lower price of hydrocarbon over time. And that's going to be a peace dividend. But again, if that is the case, which I believe it will be, and we'll be able to, in 6 or 9 months, come back to this day and see if it's an accurate prediction. But they're bringing in stability. It always leads to lower prices, and becoming predictable through our process is going to help our customers become more predictable in their processes, how they deploy capital more effectively and efficient, and compete in a lower commodity price market for a longer period of time.
Dude, that was excellent, because we've been trained to think inflation is normal, but it's not. Actually, the natural state of things should be deflation. If all this new technology should make everything more cheaper. I mean, we're getting be able to increase production of all these resources now, and you're actually right. And so, to be a good steward, to have an optimized process is smart.
Well, think about this too. So I graduated high school in 1982. I got my driver's license in 1979. And I was trying to figure out how I was going to afford to fill up my vehicle at $1 a gallon. Because just a few years earlier, gasoline was 20 cents a gallon, right?
I know.
And today, but you look, we're now talking almost 50 years later. Actually, we are talking 50 years. Whew, I'm old. 50 years later, I bought gasoline for $3 today. It's amazing. And the oil at $100 today. Back then, we were going crazy because it might have reached $30 a barrel. So it's that effectiveness, the efficiency, the predictability. Those are real, and I do believe we're going to go to a place of stability with a lower price, a peace dividend over a longer period of time.
Excellent. Refined process. It's a business process. That's the way that businesses handle these ups and downs, and is they establish like EOS and these systems to help have control of the many things we don't have control over. So it makes sense. Lloyd, if someone's been listening, they want to talk to you to see what this looks like in their future, what's the best way to connect with you?
Well, here on LinkedIn or on X or on YouTube, it's at Lloyd, at Refined Seed Lloyd B. Man, I always mess that one up. Or refinedcompletions.com, or Lloyd at Lloyd.Brown, at refinedcompletions.com. You always make me call all these things out.
I know. You'll get there. It's just
really cool thing is all they got to do is do this new QR code that you created.
Yeah.
And they did that with their camera, and boom, they're there.
Boom. Scan the code, connect with the man, see what it looks like, become the operator that you want to be. Refined Completions is here, changing the world. Patented process, patent, amazing things. We'll see you guys on next week, same time. That's a wrap. Why wells